A very good day to you. I hope you had yourself an amazing day. This is the Black Hot Fire updates on a beautiful Thursday. It's a beautiful Thursday night, 1905 East African time, the 23rd of May 2024. And I'm here to tell you about each and everything that was happening across the whole of Africa today, what was hitting the headlines. In all the corners of Africa, I have news from Chad, I have news from the US, I have news from basically everything that was hitting the headlines in Africa today. But apart from that, our main focus will be the Kenya, the news of Kenya getting listed as a non-ally, NATO non-ally, a non-NATO ally during President Ruto's visit to the United States. So I'm going to be telling you what does that really mean for Kenya. Is it the first country to be listed as a non-NATO ally? And does it really have any advantage on the people of Kenya as a people? And what does that entail? Kenya joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as a non-NATO ally, becoming only the 18th country to do so and the second country in Africa. Is it something to be proud of? Is it just another theatrics? Is it beneficial to Kenyans in any way? So we are going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at the goodies that the US has been so, I do not understand. They have been so kind. They have given us a lot of money in the recent visit, President Ruto's visit. I'm going to be telling you about some of the money that we've been given. I started by telling you yesterday about the 143 billion Kenya shillings that was given by Microsoft to start an innovation lab. But apart from that, there is more than I can't even count the number of deals that the president has signed in the US, but they are about, I know of about 52 billion Kenya shillings that have been signed so far. The state visit is not yet over. So far, he has signed deals worth 52 billion. And apart from that, he has received 16 helicopters, 150 armored vehicles refurbished. Those are the ones that the US does not use anymore. So the US has dumped 16 helicopters, 150 armored vehicles, and a lot of other goodies and money to Kenya. So whatever they want from Kenya must be very, very important because they have invested a lot of money in this. So I'm going to be telling you about some of the money, and the president had been denied permission to speak before the Congress, but he gave a speech to the Black Caucus leadership in Washington, D.C., and he met Biden today, where they talked about a lot of things, including climate change, including the Ruto asking for debts, Africa's foreign debts to be halted for 10 years. Not the borrowing, but the payment. So he was requesting that the African countries be given 10 years grace period. They be allowed to develop for 10 years without paying debts, which I want to know what you think about it. The request that the president had when he was speaking to the Congress, to the Black Caucus in Washington, he talked about African countries being given 10 years grace period to not pay any debts, but to be allowed to develop. So among the money that Kenya is going to receive, let me just go through some of the deals, although we are going to come back to that later. He is receiving, so far he has signed deals worth 52 billion, that's about 395 million USD. So some comes in forms of commitment, some comes in form of cash, some comes in form of goodies. But in the various partnerships, the White House has announced about 5 deals so far. So among them, let me just go through some of the deals. For example, 5.3 billion Kenya shillings was allocated to Kenya for democracy, human rights, and governance. They're just giving money they're just looking for reasons to hand out their handouts, because what does it mean? 5.3 billion has been allocated to Kenya. I'm reading it as it is: for democracy, human rights, and governance. 93 million to support the operationalization of the Public Benefits Organization Act. So 93 million was given to support the implementation of the Public Benefits Organization Act. The US Agency for International Development, that is the USAID, gave an additional 173 million for the Youth Empowerment Program. Another 80 million, that is about 600,000 USD, to advance disability inclusion. America is also intending to support Kenya's anti-corruption effort with another 66 million. Another 66 million is also being allocated for new fiscal integrity programs. So they are even giving money to help in managing the money that they have given. So fiscal integrity program 4. So the 66 million allocated for fiscal integrity program that was given to the president. To help the government of Kenya combat corruption, they were given 33 million Kenya shillings. That is just to fight corruption. To support the Global Accountability Program, they were given another 33 million Kenya shillings. That is just to support accountability. Another 40 million was given to support Kenya's proposed whistleblower protection law. So that is just to protect whistleblowers in the Kenya's anti-corruption legal architecture. 33 million was given to that. USAID was not done. It gave an additional 358 million to support the improvement of enforcement of policies and laws that deal with fraud, waste, and abuse in the delivery of public service to Kenyan citizens. So 358 million was given to deal with abuse of public service. So when I say they're just giving some of the titling, some of the reasons they're giving some of this money is ridiculous. It's just but looking just for openings to dish out funds. And I said whatever they're looking for in Kenya must be really, really important for them to invest this kind of money. It's a lot of money for them to invest in Kenya. I'm not even done. I'm not even halfway through the number of deals that have been signed, some of them for the most ridiculous projects. For example, there's another 929 million, that is about 7 million USD, to advance and strengthen the professionalization of Kenya's National Police Service. So they were given, that is close to $1 billion. They were given $1 billion to professionalize the Kenya National Police Service. So that was not all. They gave another 650 million to improve coordination and cooperation in combating criminal networks and holding criminals accountable. So they were given 650 million to hold criminals accountable. Another 199 million was given to take care of reforms in Kenya's electoral process and to provide support to Kenya during its election, political parties, and campaigning. That was not all. Another 4.1 billion was given to build and deploy digital health solution to support disease programs in Kenya. 4.1 billion for digital health support programs. That was not all. That's not even halfway. 1.3 billion was given as a direct loan to Kenya. Another 531 million was given also as a direct loan to Kenya. They also gave another 66 million to support the education sector. Another 66 million to support the development of Kenyan students, scientists, researchers, and engineers. They gave another 3.2 billion for the Kenya Primary Literacy Program. That is, so there was 66 million given for education, then 3.2 billion for now early education. That is the ECD, early childhood development. That is early grade literacy. That was not all. Another 40 billion to support women entrepreneurship and gender equity. another 478 billion to help in accelerating the connection of homes to cleaner electricity. So it's a lot of money that they have they have given a lot of money to the president. Why? I don't understand. I'm sure whatever they want in Kenya must be really, really important for it to take such amount of money. I'm not even done with the deals. I say the deals are worth about 52 billion, so I'm not even done. There was another 66 million towards to help in hydropower projects. There was another 6.8 billion to help in zero emission vehicles. There was another 6.7 billion, which is a loan to a financing platform called M-Kopa, that is to support smartphone receivables and cash loans. So the president with his 30, he went there with a delegation of 30 people, is coming back with 52 billion Kenya shillings. That 52 billion, which is not gonna okay. It would have been good even if they are looking for something in Kenya, of which they are. If the 52 billion was actually put into use, I'm sure it would make a little difference here and there. But me and you both know that the 52 billion is not going to be put to use, and it's not going to benefit people as it should. But that was among the goodies that the president is coming back with after his visit to the United States. He met Biden today. They had a meeting, and he is the first president to be accorded a state to have a state visit since 2018. The last president was the Ghanaian president, if I'm not wrong. It was the Ghanaian president in 2018. So since 2018, no African president has been to the US as a sitting president. So I don't know this new interest in Kenya. There's this new interest, this new liking. So when he was there, he met a lot of people. He met Steve Harvey. He went to the Tyler Perry studios, allegedly to look for ways that he can strengthen the Kenyan creative industry. So he was there with Steve Harvey. He was there with Shaquille O'Neal. He was there with Tyler Perry. Never really came out, but Tyler Perry posted and said that there were other commitments to attend to, but promised to visit Kenya later. So he said that he was there to seek a market for Kenyan creative industry. And the money in total, I told you, is 52 billion. Some into ridiculous projects. You can tell it's just looking for getaways. It's just terminologies to hand down the money, because what do you mean you're giving 40 million to support delivery of public service, 358 million to support enforcement of policies and laws, 80 million to strengthen political engagement, 173 million for youth empowerment program, which is at least that one makes sense a little bit if the money is actually going to reach the young people who were allocated 173 million for their empowerment. But that is what was happening. I saw a video of an Indian journalist doing the Lord's work, doing what the Kenyan media cannot do. So let me share the video of what the Indian journalist was doing, talking about Kenyan president and how he hired a 1.5 million USD luxury jet and carried 30 people as part of his delegation to the States, including comedians. So he went to the United States with including comedians. He carried comedians and some. Here is the video of the Indian journalist and what he had to say. She had to say.
Our next story is about Kenya, about their president, William Ruto, who is on a state visit to the US. It's the first state visit by a Kenyan president in over 2 decades, the first since 2003. It's also the first time in 16 years that an African leader is on a US state visit. So it is quite significant, but that's not what it's making news for. President Ruto is being slammed, not because he's in the US, but because of how he chose to get there. He decided to fly in a luxury jet. He chartered a Boeing 737-700 business jet from an Emirati company, the Royal Jet Group. He hired it for about 200 million Kenyan shillings. That's $1.5 million US. Ruto pulled out all the stops. He brought along an entourage of more than 30 people, which includes a famous Kenyan comedian. Everyone traveled to the US in style on the Kenyan taxpayers' dime, and this, more than anything else, has triggered the backlash. Now, some of you may wonder, what is the big deal here? After all, world leaders travel all the time. It's part of the job description. They need to travel to build relations and to negotiate trade deals. In the long run, the trip should more than pay for itself. And all of this may be true. And it's exactly what Ruto is using as his defense. But that has not helped quell public anger. Why? Because of Ruto's policies. He's been tough on Kenyan taxpayers. He became president in 2022, and he has been increasing taxes ever since. He has increased the tax rate on salaries. He has doubled the sales tax on fuel. He has introduced a housing levy, a hospital insurance levy, and a turnover tax on small businesses. If it moves, Ruto taxes it, all in the name of fiscal responsibility. Kenya has a mountain of national debt. It is worth over $51 billion as of last. Ruto had pledged to fix this. That is why he came to Kenya. He is easing the tax burden on Kenyan citizens who are already struggling with the cost of living crisis and the rising cost of essential food items. In this situation, imagine hearing that your president is flying around in an Emirati jet, the same president who's been raising your taxes, who's been preaching austerity. That same president is taking more than 30 people, including a comedian, to the US. So you can see why the Kenyan people are angry. And this is not the first time, apparently. A few months ago, Ruto was dubbed Kenya's flying president. He's been on more than 50 foreign trips since he took office in 2022, more than 3 every month on average. In the year up to July 2022, he'd spent about 9.2 million US dollars on travel, both domestic and international, 9.2 million. Now, this latest US trip alone will cost Kenya $1.5 million. For talk about austerity, Ruto's expenses just seem to be growing. So to calm the public down, he needs to have something to do for all of this, which is why this US trip needs to bear fruit. Ruto will have his official meeting with Joe Biden tomorrow. They're supposed to discuss a number of issues ranging from troop deployments in Haiti to extending a free trade agreement. Kenya's trade minister says that they have prepared more than 30 bankable projects. They're worth over $20 billion. Ruto will pitch these to American investors. If he can land a big deal, people may forget about the luxury jet. If not, he could be in trouble.
First post, second.
Yeah, so it had to take an Indian journalist to do that, to actually speak about to speak about the overspending that happened and the irrelevance of going with a delegation of 30 people. So Jiba Jaba is with on, and he's telling me that he's eating some lunch, some corn and some chicken. Wow. He's asking, what about investments into young men, entrepreneurs? It's the same here. Black girl investment, not black boys. Yeah, even there was about 600 million was handed for women inclusion. That's a big problem that we are going to talk about. The gender inequality that is now happening, it's actually the opposite now. It's all about women empowerment, never really. But anyways, he's asking, did he fly private coach or on United? He chartered a private jet from Emirates. And he says if he thinks movies like Nollywood Kenwood is already taken by a Pittsburgh amusement park. This is, wait, what about Kenya's national airline? Is there such a thing, a Kenyan Air? Kenya has, it has to be the second biggest airline in Africa. It's called Kenya Airways. It's the second biggest airline in Africa, probably after Kenya, after Ethiopian Airlines. And now here is where it even gets more interesting. As the president was flying to the US on a chartered Emirati plane, the prime minister of Ireland was in Africa also. He was touring Malawi. And do you know what the prime minister of Ireland used to tour Malawi? Let me share a video, a picture so that you can see the irony in the whole of this. So this is the prime minister of Iceland. He toured Malawi today, and he used a Kenya Airways plane. He chartered a Kenya Airways plane. So Kenya Airways actually has good reliable planes. It is one of the best airlines we have in Africa, if not the best, with good 747, with good 767s, with good 777s, with good, it actually has good planes. It is reliable. It has direct flights from Kenya to New York. There is a direct flight from Kenya to the United States. Kenya Airways actually has a direct flight from Kenya to the United States. But instead, he chartered a private Emirates plane. He chartered a private Emirate to take him there with a delegation of 30. But the prime minister of Iceland, I don't know if it's Iceland or Ireland, it's Iceland. The prime minister of Iceland used a Kenya Airways plane to fly to Malawi. But our president cannot use a Kenya Airways plane to fly to the US. He had to charter a 1.2 million USD Emirati plane to fly to the US. It doesn't get more ironical than that. It doesn't get more ironical than that. So those are among the goodies that Kenya was given, the ones that I was reading. Goodies worth 52 billion. A lot of money was given to Kenya by the US. But apart from that, our main focus of the day was how Kenya was awarded. Apart from that, it was given 16 helicopters and 150 armored vehicles, but we are coming back to that. Apart, it was awarded a non-NATO ally status. That is, it is a member of NATO, but not as a member. So it's called a non-NATO ally status. There are 18 countries right now that are under that status. Let me tell you, let me read for you the countries that are have also been granted that. There are 18 countries with it is called the MNNA status. That is, you are an ally to the NATO, but you are not a member. Among them is Argentina, Australia, Bahrain, Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, New Zealand, Pakistan, the Philippines, Qatar, South Korea, Thailand, and Tunisia. So on that 18-member list, add Kenya, it was granted an ally state, an ally title. So it's an ally to the NATO. So the NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It has 32 members that are called the NATO allies, but now they are allies but members. So Kenya is an ally but an non-member. So under I was looking at the NATO constitution. It has a constitution. So under Article 5 of the NATO treaty, this is what the privileges that countries that have been listed as NATO allies, non-member NATO allies, are eligible for. One is they're eligible for loan of material, supplies, or equipment. This is direct from the NATO constitution, the NATO mutual agreement. So one is they are eligible for loans of material, supplies, or equipment for cooperative research, development, testing, or evaluation purposes. Two, they are eligible as a location for US-owned war reserve stockpiles to be placed on its territory outside of US military facilities. Three, they can enter into agreements with the US for the cooperative furnishing of training on a bilateral or multilateral basis if the financial agreement are reciprocal and provide the reimbursement of all US direct costs. 4. They are eligible for priority delivery of excess defense articles transferred under Section 516 of the Foreign Assistance. And 5, they are eligible for consideration to purchase depleted uranium ammunition. It is the last one that is the one that talks about they are eligible for consideration to purchase depleted uranium ammunition. So I really don't get why. So Kenya becomes the 19th country to be granted that status, the third in Africa after Egypt and Morocco, the first in sub-Saharan Africa. It's not really a reason to celebrate because it's not going to change the lives of Kenyans in any way. But once again, it looks like there is a big, this is too much kindness. This is with the money that was allocated, with the Kenyan president being called, being summoned to the White House, the first to be summoned since 2018. The last president who visited the US, the last African president to visit the US was the former Ghanaian president. So it looks like there is a bigger game to this, because this is, for lack of better terms, in layman's, this is too much kindness. Not talking just about the NATO ally status that will now, for example, see the US Army being directly involved in fighting the Al-Shabaab. I know it's ironical talking about the US and fighting the Al-Shabaab, but that is part of the agreement. Considering the amount of money the US has dished out to Kenya, 52 billion. Microsoft was dished out 141 billion yesterday. I don't know, to build a digital lab. It looks like there's a bigger plan, a bigger plan, a bigger game plan that we can't see. And Java is saying that being granted a non-NATO ally status means you can't come to the party, but you can come clean up after. I couldn't have put it better. You can't come to the party, but after we're done with the party, you can come clean up whatever remains. And Kay Williams is with me. How are you doing, Kay Williams? And he's saying this has to come to an end. No other race will put up with this nonsense. Watching their people suffer globally, pure madness. And he's saying this has to come to an end. You see, that is why we as a people globally do not advance. We have nothing but sellouts. Kay Williams is saying this is the reason we are a laughing stock of the world. So I know many Kenyans are now celebrating. At first, they were really outraged when they heard that the president chartered a 1.2 million private jet to go to the US. But once they have heard about the money that he has received, and of course, the fact that Kenya has been granted a non-NATO ally, I know now they are happy, because not many people understand what NATO is anyway. I know they might look like it's good news, but it's what Jibba is talking about. It's them telling you can't come to the party, but you can come clean up after. After we're done with the party, you can come clean up. And in a show of, it was in a token of appreciation, I guess, the US gifted Kenya. Don't want to use the word dumped to Kenya, but that is the term. But for factuality purposes, it gave Kenya 16 helicopters and 150 armored vehicles. That is in respect to the first clause of the NATO constitution that says that if you are a non-NATO ally, a non-member NATO ally, you can receive military support from the United States. And for that, Kenya is said to receive 16 US manufactured helicopters and 150 armored vehicles. So the 8 helicopters are Huey helicopters. So let me look at when the Huey helicopters were commissioned? When did they fight? How old are these helicopters that we are receiving? Let's see if it's really a gift or they're just dumping. So I look at when were the Huey helicopters operational. Yep. So the Huey family of aircraft was introduced. It came out in October 20th, 1956. Those are the helicopters that the US gifted Kenya. And it was, if I'm not wrong, the helicopter that the Huey, it's Huey, Jibadaba is telling me it's Huey. It is the helicopter that the Major General of the Defense Forces who died the other day was using. It was the one that killed him. So those are the helicopters we are receiving. So that is why I said you can't argue that they are not gifting, they are dumping. So they dumped 8 helicopters, 8 Huey helicopters, and 150 armored vehicles as a token of appreciation to Kenya. So the 8 of them were Hueys. I don't know what the other 8 were because the total number of helicopters are 16. Or the other 8 are MD500s. So let me see, when was the MD500s? When did the MD500s fight? So that you can know if they are gifting or dumping. When were the MD500 used? They were used in 1967. Those are the other 8 helicopters that you were gifted. One from 1954, the other one from 1967. But yeah, let's clap for the people. Apart from that, I said they're going to give 150 armored vehicles. And I want you to mark that in the NATO constitution, in the Article 5, they say, if you are given a non-NATO ally, the US can set up a base in your country. Not that they already have bases in Kenya, but now the US, let me read that specific article as it is in the constitution, so that you can see you being granted a non-NATO ally is not just about you. It's not it's not even to beneficial to you as it is to them, because now they can come set up a military facility in your country and you cannot question, because that was part of what you signed. You thought you were getting the goodies, but you are the one, you are the one who was getting played. You thought you are getting privilege. Oh, now I'm a NATO ally, untouchable. So there is an article in the constitution that says, it's actually the second clause in the NATO constitution. It says non-NATO ally countries can enjoy the following privileges. The second one is they are eligible for allocation for US-owned war reserve stockpiles to be placed on its territory outside of US military facilities. So what that means is the US can set up a military facility in your country at any time, because you are a NATO ally. And now they have three NATO allies in Africa: Kenya, Egypt, and Morocco. As Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are chasing away the US Army, because the part of the other news that we were to say today, I was to report on today, is that the US has agreed to completely withdraw from Niger by September 15th. So as Niger is kicking out the US Army, and they have been given up to September 15th, which they have agreed that they're going to leave by September 15th, Kenya is inviting them. So Niger is kicking them out. Kenya is signing deals that allow the US to set up a facility at any time in the country. So how are we going to develop? How are we going to be better as a continent? How are we going to develop as a continent when one side of the continent is moving to the right direction, but the other side is pulling the side that is moving in the right direction to the other side? Because Niger, as Kwame Nkrumah said, as the president of Central African Republic said, for Africa to develop, it has to develop as a unit. If Niger develops without Nigeria, it won't work. If you're rich and your neighbor is poor, you're not really rich. Your neighbor will come steal from you. But then you look at how are we going to develop as a block when we have one block moving to the right direction, but the other block moving in the opposite direction? One block is kicking out the US, one block is kicking out the West, the other block is signing deals, receiving military support, it received another fleet of 12 military jets from Israel the other day. How many was it? Let me see. Kenya received another fleet of military planes from Israel. Let me see how many they were. So it actually took a loan from Israel and also received, I can't see the number, but I'm sure it was just about a few weeks ago. It was about 12 military jets from was it M15s from Israel. So how can we develop as a continent when one side is pulling us, one side being the one that I live in, that is Kenya? And K. Williams says, what the hell? When the hell do we get a break? We've been fighting over 400 years. And Jiba Jaba says, I think about it and it's depressing because I don't see it in our lifetime. Jiba Jaba says, you sign away your sovereignty. And he says the US funds over 65% of NATO, and now Kenya is member of the same as a non-NATO ally. As the whole of Africa is moving away, that makes me mad. As the whole of Africa is moving away from the West, we headed there, we signing deals there, we talking about how we have a 60-year relationship with the United States, how they have been our close allies, but it is the state of our leaders. So that is all I had today, on a day where, in other news, Idris Deby was sworn in as the president of Chad. Kenya was granted a non-member NATO ally title, becoming only the 18th country in Africa, the 18th country in the world to have that status, alongside the countries that I mentioned. That is, let me read the countries once again. Alongside Australia, Bahrain, Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, New Zealand, Pakistan, the Philippines, Qatar, South Korea, Thailand, and Tunisia. So it joins the list of those countries that can receive military support from NATO, as well as NATO can set up a military base in their country at any given point. The US has also agreed to withdraw from Niger by September 15th, and Kenya was also awarded 16 helicopters and 150 armored vehicles from the US, in addition to goodies, loans, and grants worth 52 billion Kenya shillings, in addition to another 141 billion from Microsoft. So that was all I had. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. It's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Joby is coming up in a bit, so make sure you catch her. She will be here at 8. But enjoy the rest of your day. It's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.